Alright guys, we got something pretty fun here for you today. We're going to be doing another top 5 video, but this time we're going to be focusing on campaign. I've got a gentleman who will be joining me alongside through this grand journey, and you might know him from Everchosen, you might know him from his own YouTube channel. So if you haven't already, please go ahead over to Loremaster of Sotek. He's a great friend of mine. He'll be joining through this lovely video here today. And the way we're going to structure this is we're going to talk about, of course, our 5 picks for the most challenging campaigns of Total War Warhammer 2. And the way we're going to kind of look at this is I'm going to talk about numbers 4, 3, and 1, and Sotek is going to talk about numbers 2 and 4. So Sotek, why don't you tell us a little bit about the rules or criteria or assumptions that we're working under for this video? And hey, let's toss it just on over to Sotek. Sotek, go.
Hey everybody. So yeah, the assumptions that we're basically working under, the criteria to select these 5 campaigns, is that these are the 5 most difficult campaigns to survive. So these are the ones where you are very, very likely to lose the game or get wiped out by the AI just because you made a small mistake or because their starts or their overall campaign is really difficult. So they're not necessarily campaigns where you have to be slow because they're really grindy. These are the ones that it's genuinely stressful because if you make a mistake, the AI can and will take you out.
Okay, perfect. Well, with that kind of established, again, guys, please head on over to Loremaster of Sotek's channel. A huge shout out and a thanks to him for doing this because he is, in my opinion, the best campaign player that I personally know. So you'll be able to jump over to one of his videos where he explicitly states that he is not a good player. So you can see that on his channel. But let's jump in here to our first one on the list, our number 5, which is, I guess you could say, the easiest of the hard, right, Sotek, right?
I guess that would be the technical way to put it, sure.
I'm not a physicist, but let's jump into number 5. First up on our list, number 5 is Malice Darkblade, and he is one of the newest lords added to the game as of the creation of this video. So 2 things we forgot to kind of mention in the precursor in the intro is that all of these campaigns, are, in our opinion, will be on the Mortal Empire's campaign map, not on the Vortex. And this is, of course, as of the creating of this video, updated to the Shadow and the Blade, which is the most recent DLC, again, as of the creation of this video. But taking a look at Malice Darkblade, you have so many mechanics stacked against you. And a lot of these campaigns will really come down to surviving those first 30, 40, 50 turns. But you still have to deal with the potion mechanic system with Malice Darkblade. And what that means is you have to deal with negative casualty replenishment rate. And at the beginning of the game, when you're trying to get so much momentum by capturing other settlements, by really expanding as fast as you can, this will be an absolute hamstring for you. In addition to that, when you get your possession very high, you also will have loyalty issues. You can see here at full possession, we already have on start, lords have a chance to gain a -1 loyalty. And that's pretty rough. Fortunately, you don't have to deal with the shipment system. Instead, you have to get to 10 provinces. And once you get to 10 provinces, your elixirs become free. So that is something that you're going to have to blitz towards. But one real big hamstring, again, for Malice is that he has no allies anywhere near him. He gets very little trade, poor income from trade, so you're going to be relying solely on your slave income to really bolster as much as you can. That means you will have a lot of public order issues, and you have to worry about that because you're going to be dealing with a lot of rapid expansion and casualty replenishment, so all that kind of stacks up on you. The only allies you really have a chance of getting are Tomb Kings, and they're pretty far away from your starting location over here. Now, a way to really curb the difficulty of this campaign is when the first 1, 2, 3, 4 turns when you deal with your dilemma with Haggrafe. Now, in the Vortex campaign, I would say get rid of Haggrafe immediately. You just have so many rapid expansion choices. You can get gold mines and iron mines out the wazoo, which is a French word for ass. Now, in this case, though, you're going to want to keep Haggrafe, because if you keep Haggrafe, you want to slowly build up this guy's army. He starts at loyalty 10, which is quite nice, but then you go slowly search these ruins as time permits and slowly build his army up to then take these provinces and just babysit the Black Flood, Haggrafe, that province. No reason to expand from there. Once you do that, I think that'll kind of take the difficulty of this campaign down a little bit, and it's just a matter of getting to turn 30, 40, or 50 or so before you can really start to snowball and really stop feeling the full effects of the difficulty of Malice Darkblade. Before we toss it over to the Lore Master of Sotek and our number 4 entry, it is worth noting too though that keeping Hagrafe does enable you to trade with all of the Dark Elves around you, Agarn included of course, so that will in addition help out your trade income and helping again curb that difficulty of Malice Darkblade.
Alright guys, and to take us into number 4, we have Archon the Black, the sinister Lich of Nagash. So this guy actually starts with a pretty nasty conundrum, because you'll notice that he actually has 2 starting settlements instead of just a capital or just a minor settlement that he starts around in. And you would think this is a bonus, because he starts with twice as much space as most people do, but it's actually kind of a downside, because the problem with Archon is that he's right on a coastline and he is surrounded by people who hate him. You're surrounded by Bretonnians who are at war with you, now led by Rapants, which makes things way worse. You're surrounded by, and then you have dwarves who really, really hate you. You've got Tic-Tac-Toe just past the mountains, so lizardmen who really hate you. And then past that is nothing but Tomb Kings who have a minus 50 diplomacy with you just for picking up Archon the Black. So you're basically going to be permanently at war on this continent with everybody on it, which just sucks. The only way to get any friends as Archon is you basically have to send agents like your starting Lich Priest out into the ocean to hopefully make contact with the vampire pirates and convince them to like you, whether it's Sartosa, the Vampire Coast, or Count Noctilus, and hopefully just keep moving that agent further and further and further north until you run into the vampire counts in Kemler and Musion. That way you can maybe be buddies with them. And to make the real issue, though, at the end of the day, is beyond being surrounded by enemies and nobody likes you, so everyone's going to be gunning for you. The problem with Tomb Kings in general is their economy sucks, and Archon is no exception to this. Now, generally, the way Tomb Kings get over their bad economy is through trade, but as we just established, everybody hates Archon, so that very rarely works in his favor. Nobody wants to trade with you because they're all trying to kill you. So you have to rely on more unusual methods, because Tomb King campaigns tend to start off very difficult, as you only have access to trash tier infantry, just skeleton warriors and skeleton spearmen, until you have enough money to get the sophisticated buildings so you can get Shabti or the larger constructs. Archon can kind of help this out with his unique Gravehill building, which of course can upgrade to the Ancient Burial Mound, which will give you access to like Hex Wraiths, Crypt Ghouls, Fellbats, and Direwolves, but that only is a very small band-aid on his big issue. Beyond that, you do want to acquire, once you get his campaign going and you hopefully survive the initial gauntlet, which make sure you just build garrisons everywhere, once you can, you want to start collecting the Books of Nagash, because the more books you get, the better. Now, which book ends up where can kind of be random, but if you're lucky, you'll have like the 7th Book of Nagash right next to you, which will grant you stuff like extra canopic jars and research rate, and that'll really help your campaign knock into super mode where Archon will really come into his own. At the end of the day, though, the biggest thing I say for Tomb King players that a lot of them don't necessarily think about is spamming Lich Priests. And the reason for that is when you go into your tech tree, the Tomb Kings have a massive, beautiful tech tree, but it's very slow. But the way you get around this is you spam Lich Priests and you just have them all pile in on some poor little settlement and just spam steel technology all day. Your characters are free. All of your stuff is free. So you want to get all the characters you possibly can to make absolute use of them. You know, your Lich Priest stealing tech, your Tomb Princes assaulting units, so on and so forth. So hopefully that will give you what you need to know to get through Archon, but be careful. It is very difficult.
All right, number 3 on our list is the mighty Belegar Ironhammer, and this one should be pretty self-evident to a lot of you as to why this campaign is so goddamn difficult. I mean, it even starts off right at the beginning of the game. How to play, it tells you upkeep is plus 50% until Carrick 8 Peaks is recaptured. And that makes it for a very slow start to this campaign. I mean, honestly, you're going to be barred from creating a 20 stack. It's like damn near impossible in the beginning. Whereas in other campaigns, you can get that first 20 stack in like the first 2-3 turns if you're pretty diligent about recruiting. In addition to that, you kind of start pretty isolated. Sure, you do have Karak, Hearn up here, And Karak Zorn over here, I'm sorry, Norn. Zorn is way to the south. Karak Norn over here. But they're really not going to be friendly towards you. They're not friendly towards anyone, so they're not going to be friendly towards you. So really the name of this game is going to be fighting the giant financial aspect that is going to be pushing against you. So this portion is going to be mainly focused on how do you fix that. So the first big thing you're going to want to do is take all 4 of your heroes and embed them into Belegar Ironhammer's army. They are not going to budge from that army until you take Karak 8 Peaks. That's going to be the biggest boon for you because it's going to fill up a lot of space and they're going to do a lot of damage. Next, go to Karak Izor, build the Copper Mountain. Do that as fast as you can. And then you want to fill up his army with just some basic miners here, just because they're cheap, and then their individual upkeep, it's 55 less than a dwarf warrior, and they're going to get the job done because a lot of the fighting is going to be done from you and your heroes. And then you want to take your starting province as fast as you can. Now, one of the things that adds to the difficulty of this campaign is all the new DLC that's been added that's going to act against Clan Angrand. For one, Clan Scryer is right here. Skaven Blight is just across the zombie marshes. Then on top of that, Sartosa is just to the south. So they're really going to be a huge thorn in your side, especially knowing that Zarek Zil is right on the border down over there by Tilia. So you're going to deal with a lot of pressure for them. So the best way to build out your first 3 provinces is with Karak Bufdar. Make the Ranger Outpost to reduce your upkeep of your Rangers. Make your Timber and then your Ranger Outpost. The Timber is going to reduce that upkeep for your Rangers. And then make a Garrison. Now with Zarek Zil, make a Mustering Hall, the Tool Tinkerers and or the Growth Building to help you expand this out, and then build a Garrison. You basically want to turn your first province into Fort Knox, or Karak Fort Knox, whatever it's going to be. And then Karak Izor, once you've made that Copper Mountain, what you want to do from there is make a Trinket Maker to get you some initial income, get some beer for help out with your public order, a Garrison to, again, help make it a holdfast, then help out with a Trading Depot, a Runesmith building to build more Runesmith, and lastly, just dealer's choice on that, whatever slot makes the most sense for you. And one thing that's really going to help you out on your crusade to Karak 8 Peaks is your technology tree. Now, starting with the Way of the Guilds, then to Khazid Subsidies, helps out with your income from settlement buildings, Tool Market to help out with your Tool Makers buildings, and then the Tool Makers Guild to further increase that bonus. 15% is going to be really helpful here. So focus on as much income as you can from your research abilities, from your hero things. Last thing to kind of close this little section out, you're going to want to make some Thanes to join you in your march over here to the mighty Karak 8 Peaks. Now, when you take Karak 8 Peaks, do not conquer your way there. Just get there and take it. And use your Thanes that are outside of your army to assault both the garrison and any units of any army you have to fight when you're sieging Karak 8 Peaks.
All right. Coming into our 2 big ones. At number 2, we've got Marcus Wolfheart, the Hunts Marshal of the Empire. So this campaign has a really unique difficulty to it in that you are very isolated in a very bizarre place, very far away from all of your allies, kind of similar to Malice we talked earlier, but it's even more extreme. Because where Malice, of course, has the option to have fingers dipped in back at home in Nagaroth, as Wolfheart, you're totally isolated. And you even start with a minor settlement on a coast, and you're surrounded by lizardmen who all hate you, vampire coast who are going to be spreading vampiric corruption to just give you public order problems, and they will also hate you very quickly. And then, of course, the Savage Orcs. I cannot express how dangerous these freaking Savage Orcs are to your campaign. Until you have a very reliable source of magic damage, that the Blue Viper tribe has the ability to single-handedly destroy your campaign's face, unless you have walls to hide behind. These guys have such high physical resistance, and all they do is charge directly at you. And the problem with Wolfheart is he's mostly a ranged-focused faction, and he doesn't have access to any high-tier Empire units. You have to unlock all of the high-tier units by increasing your acclaim with the Empire. So you can't get things like great swords or bonus hunts marshals or high tier cav or any of that. You can't get heavily armored knights or hardcore war machines, any of that, until you got enough acclaim. So those savage orcs, you don't have an answer to them early campaign. Even if you have a wizard, you're still not really going to have an answer because they will just run over you. So stay away from them at all costs. Beyond that, you can run into some pretty serious difficulties financially if you allow the lizardmen, if you make the lizardmen angry enough that they come after you. Because the thing that gets people playing Wolfheart's campaign is what's known as the hostility meter, which is this neat little line of skulls at the top of your screen. And you'll notice that the problem with it is it's very easy to build up on it, and the penalties when you build up on it are absurd. You have a notable public order penalty, which stacks very significantly if you're playing at high difficulty, like hard or very hard or, God forbid, legendary. You will be dealing with constant rebellions, and all of the enemies will have that massive plus 10 leadership and plus 25% weapon strength, which at those high difficulties, that's what makes the Savage Orcs in particular so nasty, and also the Lizardmen really nasty, is that Lizardmen and Savage Orcs don't rely on armor-piercing damage, they rely on natural weapon strength, so that bonus is huge on them. And that leadership will basically make them unbreakable when you add in the difficulty modifiers, which also increases their leadership. So the question is, with all these problems, how do you survive? Well, the biggest thing is to rely on the characters. Your goal is to get the 4 unique story characters as quick as you can. You know, turn 1, declare war on that vampire coast so you can get the witch hunter, send the witch hunter then to Zlanhapek so you can get the paladin, send whichever of them you like the least to go get the dwarf from the spine of Sotek Mountains while the other one joins Wolfheart, and then you'll get the elf naturally just by leveling up. And your goal is to get the 4 of them into your army and get them all the way through their storylines as quickly as possible. Beyond that, if you can, try and touch base. You know, take your starting province and then just go east. Take the northern Great Jungle so you can take Zlanhapek and all those places. And then if you can, take the Vampire Coast so you have a nice corner of Lustria to call your home. Won't be easy. You'll still be dealing with a lot of really nasty opponents and issues. Skaven, Lizardmen, Greenskins, the works. But if you can accomplish that, hopefully you can make contact with Teclis and maybe even send an agent to Ulthuan to make contact with Tyrion, and you can get some solid alliances going for some of that sweet elven money. But at the end of the day, beware of the orcs. Like, the vampires are nasty, the lizardmen are very, very nasty, but the orcs, man, if you get too high on that hostility meter, they will wreck your shit. And I do not say that lightly, because it has happened to me, it can happen to you. Last thing, make sure you always have garrisons in your settlements. So with those things in mind, although this campaign can be brutal, especially if you're playing on very hard or higher, because the AI is hostile and those stacking buffs just is ugly, you can survive. Just gotta be careful. Just like you would expect if you were exploring a wild jungle full of angry, 8-foot-tall angry lizard people and man-eating mushrooms. So with that, good luck and happy hunting.
Number 1 on our list, the ultimate Mac Daddy, the hardest campaign, or at least in our experience, is going to be Skarsnik of the Crooked Moon. Now, it is kind of goes without saying why this is a difficult campaign. You look at this, how to play, and you cannot recruit orcs until you take Carrick 8 Peaks. That is such a massive, massive penalty against you. And the reason behind that is that you're surrounded by a lot of factions that require orcs to really soundly beat. Sure, yeah, you get your bonuses to your upkeep, your hero action costs, so on and so forth, but really, you're going to be up a massive uphill battle. And to start out here, you only start with a minor settlement. So your building is going to be very limited, not only to mention that you are playing orcs, which have limited buildings in general. So, by looking at the minor settlement, you're also in the Southern Grey Mountains, filled with Carrick Norn dwarfs, which are going to be all juiced up on their massive provincial capital. Now, and speaking of juice, you have a lot of other stuff around you, namely, of course, the new Reichland. With the Marcus Wolfheart DLC, Reichland has replaced the Empire Secessionists. So they, in the past, were a really great initial kind of target to expand out to, build some fightiness, just expand your little tiny Crooked Moon Empire. Now you have Karl Franz just waiting to smack you up with Galmaraz. To the east, you have mighty Balthazar Gelt, who's not going to be any fun to deal with too. To the west, you have all of Bretonnia, and then to the south, you have Wood Elves. So you're just hemmed in with all of these very strong lords. But on top of that, for the exception, of course, to the Wood Elves, all of these factions have had their faction updates and overhauls, so they have all this fresh new buildings to take advantage of, these new units, whatever it is. So you're really kind of going on an uphill battle from there right out the gate. Now you can do some kind of early trading with Massive Orcal, which is the only orc settlement close to you, but by turn 20, Lo and Leonkar is just going to take the Massive Orcal to town. Outside of that, the closest reliable ally is going to be Grimgor over here in the, where is it, in the Black Crag. So good luck getting to that anytime soon. So really, when you take a look at all those things, when you stack them all together, you have so many things that are going to be just stacking the deck, right? So many hard mechanics. But on top of that, if you take a look over here at the end turn button, you only have 3 little buttons. So your technology tree, absolute rubbish, just total garbage. In addition to that too, we already mentioned this, but your buildings, all subpar. And you have a WA mechanic, which is your faction's mechanic, which is just broken and hasn't been overhauled yet. You're going to be able to summon up an army, that's going to be great, but not going to do anything because it's just going to suicide onto the walls of some major settlement. So now that we've talked about a lot of the difficulties of this campaign, Sotek, how do you fix playing a Skarsnik campaign?
Well, you release a DLC that fixes the green skin. That's all. But to be a little more hopeful until that day hopefully comes soon. Honestly, this one, in my opinion, boils down to agent spam and very carefully choosing your opponents. So the one of the things Skarsnik has going for him is that they kind of designed his faction with this bizarre ability to get a bunch of really, really cheap characters and be able to just spam them out, and like all of their actions are really cheap and stuff. So you want to have as many of the characters as you can get. Unfortunately, they don't have a really solid assassin character right now who can assault units. You know, you have your regular goblin big boss who can like assassinate, and then you have shamans who can, I think, steal tech or maybe damage a single unit. And that's kind of your only real options. You don't have like an orc big boss yet, or a black orc big boss, so you don't really have the ability to like even spam down armies like you would with most factions. But I would say the big thing is take over Carrick Norn quick as you can, fortify it up, and then you kind of just got to make a break for Carrick 8 Peaks once you have a really like 2 solid armies under your control. Don't rely on the wall mechanic. It's kind of trash right now. The army doesn't do what you want it to, and it'll suicide against something goofy. Try not to start a war with Karl Franz. It used to be okay to do it when he didn't own 5 settlements to himself at the very start of the campaign. Raiding is actually super good with Skarsnik. Like, raiding Nuln can be really, really nice if you're looking for just income. But I would just say, like any boy growing up in the middle of nowhere, get the hell out of that small town and get to the big city. Like, get to the big area where all the greenskins hang out. Because that is... Skarsnik's campaign is brutal. If it weren't for the fact that him and the Night Goblin War Boss Lord have really effective skills on their skill trees for all Goblin armies, this campaign would be like borderline impossible unless you just cheese it. The only other thing I would say is that in your starting settlement, I think it's completely worth it to get a troll cave as quickly as possible, because trolls are such a good starting unit. Like, squigs are cool and all, but trolls provide a lot of firepower. But you do need to rely very, very heavily on things like squigs and trolls to back up your goblins, or else you're just going to get squished. And but overall, the campaign is pretty brutal, and it's probably going to remain the hardest campaign until the greenskins get a much needed freshening.
A freshening for breezing. Well, guys, that is going to conclude our video here for today, talking about the top 5, or our opinion, the top 5 most challenging campaigns. And I'm I'm really excited for a hopeful Greenskin DLC in the future. They said that we're getting an old world update on them, right?
We should be. I can't imagine that we wouldn't. But yeah, because they got like I know everybody agrees that like Wood Elves and Beastmen and Warriors of Chaos and stuff could use some love too, but Greenskins are just not even fun to play. So like Wood Elves, the Amber system is stupid, but other than that, they're fine. But Greenskins, man, it's just it's so bare bones.
Yeah. Before we started recording this section, Zotek said, "Take a look at the right, man. That end turn timer is so low. The end turn button is so lonely. It's only got 3 little buttons that accompany it, so gives you a really good idea of the state of the greenskins just by looking at that.
And you can't even do anything with them. Greenskin diploma, you can't trade as Greenskin, so the diplomacy button's useless a lot of the time. And their tech tree, you can't even use it most of the time. And when you can use it, their techs are terrible. They suck."
Well, that's the greenskin way. It's just basically fungus, and they want to be able to like slap things with a hammer and like boards and nails.
I know, but how am I supposed to clap cheeks with my greenskins if I don't if I can't get like proper choppas, dude?
Yeah, when you think about it, greenskins their lot in life is solely to clap cheeks. On that note, guys, if you haven't, please head on over to Loremaster of Sotek's channel. He's got a great channel covering a lot of the deeper aspects of specific fine-tuned lore. Subjects, I guess you could say. He does a lot of streams of both Total War Warhammer 2 campaign playthroughs, as well as Vermintide. You started playing Underworld, right?
Yeah, we've been just kind of adding in various. If it's Warhammer themed, we toss it on.
There.
That's the moral of the story.
There it is. Well, guys, head on over to Loremaster of Sotek's channel. You'll see a link in the description and the comment section. Go ahead and check it on out. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today, and thank you, Sotek, for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
As always, guys, have a good one, and take care.